Well, we all carry our programming with us. And now this new science kind of corroborates that, because we all copy from our parents what was there, or we all develop patterns based on how they treated us and how we interpreted their treating us. Either they were being loving and kind and supportive, or on the other hand, they might be critical or pressuring and so on. So we got used to following some kind of rules that were put out for us. Either they were modeled by our parents, that was their way of talking to each other or to us, or they put pressure on us and judgments on us, and we learned to incorporate that. And so if we have that programmed in, we can see just as part of my programming. Is it programming I want to keep, or is it programming I don't? We now know, for example, that how the computer was developed is because they looked at the brain, examined how it worked, and used that to create the computer. And so now we know with computers, if you have programs in there that gum it up, you go delete, 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 and install new programs. Well, the good news is we can do that with our brains too. There are new tools now that we can use that stimulate the acupressure points. It's called the emotional freedom technique, or I have an adaptation of it I call the EFTA, or the original version of it was thought field therapy, developed by both psychologists in California. And they found that if they stimulated certain acupressure points along with the measures, we can release those negative emotions. And if we also let go of the thoughts that create those negative emotions, we're helping ourselves return to peace as well. Because our disturbance comes from both levels. Our past programming, the beliefs that grew out of that, the emotions that were stirred up in those situations at home. And so I'm likely to see the world through those tinted eyeglasses, the same ones. But if I can use these new tools to deactivate those childhood traumas, to deactivate the current traumas, and if I can use them to deactivate the beliefs that I'm carrying around that just cause me to be more disturbed or stressed or burned out, and change them to beliefs that can be more supportive. If I can do that, I'm going to be much more at peace. I'm going to be happier. I'll get along better in my relationships. I will stay healthier. Because now we know an article in the New England Journal of Medicine back in the late 80s had reported a research project that showed that 80 to 90% of all symptoms were related to stress in some way. And we know that stress is a very powerful factor in our staying happy and healthy or our being sick. Because stress just creates stress hormones. And those stress hormones make us feel more exhausted or worked out. And so when we can see that we have more power inside ourselves than we think we have. I always remember so much this chance I had to study with Viktor Frankl when I was at Boston University in graduate school. He was brought there as a visiting professor. And most people know Viktor Frankl's name because he was in a concentration camp in Germany. And he was able to survive it. And he saw a lot of people that didn't. And he saw that what people thought about now, what people thought about the future, what people thought about themselves, what people thought about the perpetrators, that all of that made a difference in terms of whether they were going to be abused by the guards, hauled off to the gas chambers, or be ignored by those guards in a different way. And the ones that lived longer and the ones that were hauled to the chambers, he saw that it had so much to do with what they were focusing on, the people were focusing on. So it wasn't just happening to them by the Nazi guards, but he helped me see that the people also played a role in that as well by their interpretations. We all do the same thing. He's the one that opened that up for my way of thinking and seeing that we can be more in charge of our lives by being in charge of what thoughts I think and what feelings I keep going on, and whether I push out more stress all the time or whether I return to peace and joy and happiness, basically being more love most of the time.